All right. Okay. So, welcome everyone. I think that people have access to the chat here. Do they? Is the chat open? Wonderful. So, as people are joining in, um, if you can drop in the chat an emoji that highlights your emotional well-being, I want to see what people are feeling today. So, just drop that in. Okay. Okay. Some what does the upside down smiley mean? I'm not sure about that one. Feeling tired? All right. Good, good. Okay. Okay. Yes, yes. Oh boy. Oh boy. Okay. All kinds of stuff. I love the party emoji. Yes. We're feeling a whole gamut of emotions. Hanging in there. Good, good. Well, I am super excited to be in community with the UW family. So as you can see, we are seeing a lot of emotions, all kinds of emotions. And one of the emotions that we are seeing a lot around campus is stress. And stress, while often it's viewed negatively, it actually has both advantages and disadvantages, depending on its intensity, its duration, how it's managed. So perhaps in our conversation with our panelists today, we will hear some of the ways in which stress can be a motivator and perhaps build some resilience in us in addition to the different ways in which it is impacting our kind of our health in negative ways. So, often people can believe that an absence of stress leads to emotional well-being, that is what emotional well-being is, that it's an absence of stress. Well, in actuality, emotional well-being is more than just an absence of distress. It's about feeling balanced. It's about being resilient. It's about being able to really engage in meaningful ways with yourself and with others. So, being in community today, that is a way of being emotionally connected and is a way of nurturing emotional well-being. It refers to the ability to really kind of understand, manage, and express emotions in healthy ways and to cope with life's challenges. So, with that, let's really get started with our conversation for today. So, like Anna said, my name is Dr. Mevesh Ali. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a clinical psychologist with the UW Counseling Center, and I will serve as your moderator today. And the panelists have already been introduced, but what I would like our panelists to do before we jump into our questions for today is to please share a non-work hobby. And we do have some prepared questions that we can start with, but we would love to take questions from the audience as well. So I'm gonna popcorn it off to, let's start with Ryan. Do you have a non-work hobby to share with our audience today?
Yeah, good morning, everybody. And I appreciate y'all being here and being on the panel. Usually I'm in the audience, so it's kind of nice to engage in this way. My non-work hobby is I'm a musician. I'm a drummer, so I love playing music and listening to music. And actually, those are really important parts of my own well-being, which maybe we'll talk more about later.
Awesome. Thank you. And Rachel, you're on my screen next.
Okay, awesome. One of my favorite outside of work hobbies is just getting outside for hikes and walks. And another thing that my daughter, who's 9, is saying that I need to have more of a hobby is tennis, because I used to play that and she's now 9 and starting to already beat me. So she said, Mom, you've really got to get out there. So I might have to add that to my list. So
Awesome. That's great. That's great. Okay, Emma, you're on my screen next.
Yeah, hi everyone. Also excited to be on this panel and community with all of you. I think my non-work hobby right now would be trying to garden with a strong emphasis on trying.
What are you growing?
I'm lettuce and like peas, but mostly I think I'm growing food for some slugs.
Yeah, yep, yep. Slugs, the bane of the gardeners. And Pranika, what about for you?
Hi, everyone. I am so glad you joined, Pranika Lang. Um, let's see, my um, non-work hobby. So I'm a parent of two super busy kids that play a lot of sports. So I am a full-on soccer mom. So that takes a lot of my time. Um, but also I am becoming a plant person. COVID made me a plant person. So I have lots of plants around my house. And I am also, from my colleagues, got some tips on how to ignore orchids so that they rebloom. So I have um, amazing orchids that just bloom over and over again, which I'm like so proud of myself. Like never thought I could do that. And also, I mean, yeah, I'll talk a little bit during my this talk about walking. I walk a lot, and beginning of this year, I refocused on hot yoga because things are hard, and with healthcare, federal policy changes, and just many different things. So I needed to take care of myself, in order to take care of our team. So I really, really focused and committed to some goals of hot yoga. And I've been reaching my goals of 5 hot yoga classes per week. And
Oh,
that's just
oh,
really positive that his stress took me there. So
awesome. And in the chat, it seems like there is some interest in plants. So maybe if we have some time at the end of the session, we're going to share some plant secrets and some gardening tips. All right. Okay. Thank you everyone for sharing your work hobbies. I've known some of the panelists for a few days and some of the panelists for a few years in different capacities, and I've learned something new. So it's pretty awesome. All right, so we're gonna jump into our first question here. Okay, so our first question is, every role in the university has kind of its own set of stressors, even in under perfect conditions. So, what actions do you take to prevent stress or anxiety even before it begins? And I'm gonna go ahead and start with Rachel, please.
okay, this is a great question. I definitely think, for sure, all of us are in the midst of stress. And, I know for myself, there's no week where I can prevent stress completely, and every week brings its new stresses. So, a big, I'd say, game changer for me has been to really focus on how I spend my weekends. And I don't do it perfectly, but really protecting, especially Sunday, as kind of a family day where, we do church, we go to the grocery store, we rest and do some planning for the week. And I even think about, like, what are the deadlines coming up for that week? Like, what are the big kid activities? Do I have an appointment, like a dentist appointment? What are the things looking ahead so that I can kind of go into the week, in my most whole self, knowing that there's going to be some hard conversations, there's going to be some stressors. So I'd say really protecting some time on the weekend to kind of set myself up the best I can for what's coming at me. And actually, one of my roles is an academic coach for students. And I talk with students a lot about this too, because I've seen this really help me. And I think it can really help really for anybody. But yeah, but every week brings a lot of new things. So I don't do it perfectly, but I think how we spend our weekends can really help support a good week.
Thank you, Rachel. Yeah, being super protective of those weekend times can be very, very helpful. Emma, would you like to add anything to that?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I feel like I also have a process, on the day before I have to go back to work to sort of reflect, okay, this is what I need to do. I try to do that on a daily basis too, on good days and on stressful days of before I go into work. So I take the bus into work, asking myself, like, what is my best hope for today? And what do I really not want to have to face today? Just to sort of name. And then I ask myself at the end of the day on the bus home, like, what went well today? And what do I need to leave in today? To help me sort of preemptively process and then afterwards, like process how it went, but do it before I get home. So that by the time I'm home, I'm just
Yeah,
home.
yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. In the chat, we have Lindsay calling it the sacred Sundays. I love that term. I have a long commute home, and I hate it. Kind of intellectually, I hate it, but in practice, I do find that it can be really helpful to just kind of decompress and leave the stress of work. At work, and by the time I get home after I've listened to my books and enjoyed the view of Mount Rainier, I can just be home then. Yeah, yeah. Um, Pranika, would you like to add anything to that? Anything different or similar that you do?
Can you hear me? Sorry, my microphone. Okay, I'm perfect. Um, one thing that I do is practice gratitude of every morning. And so, similar to what Emma mentioned, but some people journal, right? Like journaling works. And for me, unfortunately, I would love to, but that doesn't work. But I, set my alarm earlier than I have to wake up to give myself to um, wake up in the mornings and just think of the three things that I'm grateful for, right? Like just reflect, and every day it changes. Sometimes it's the kids and teens. Sometimes it's, my colleagues being in this together, just various things. So moment of gratitude before I get out of bed, and also at nighttime when I'm falling asleep, I just reflect on my day and what's coming up, and just really, really think of three things. And it's just important, right? It's this stresses, these different levels of stress at different times, but how can we, as human beings, take time to reflect on the good things, right? We're here and there is good things in life too. So definitely remembering the good things to help us during the bad times or the
I
stressful times. Yeah.
completely agree with that. And with that, I'm going to ask our audience members here if you can take a minute to drop something in the chat that you are grateful for. That can be our moment of gratitude. While Ryan shares maybe his ideas for what he does to preserve his peace.
Yeah, I wanted to. It's funny. I wanted to share a text with you all, actually. A friend of our family gave us this little book by Thich Nhat Hanh. Some of you may be familiar with these little, they're almost like a pocket series. And it's called How to Relax. And I'll put it in the chat. It might get buried in your gratitude, but that's okay. That's perfect. This is unsolicited. But it was a gift from my wife, actually, and I kind of stole it and put it on my bedstand. And it's kind of perfect because they're just little short readings. Thich Nhat Hanh is a Zen teacher and Buddhist, but there's lots of different exercise or activities or kind of framings about how we might think and how we might kind of create space for deeper forms of relaxation. So I thought I definitely wanted to share that with y'all. That is totally unsolicited, but I've just found that to be really useful, and it's an easy, quick read. And I think so that's just one thing. There's lots of, I think, thoughtful ideas in there. And then I think I would just echo what Pranika was saying. I know we're talking about gratitude practices, but one thing I was trying to think about how this panel relates to not just home, but also work activities. And I think one thing I was thinking about was, sometimes we can be in tricky meetings, with different personalities that, sometimes we might agree with, or sometimes we might have different ways of thinking about some of the shared work. And sometimes years ago when I'd be driving to work or light railing, I think my mind would be cluttered and potentially worried about an impending meeting where there might be some challenging conversations or something like that. And one thing that I started doing was gratitude practices for folks I thought I might have a tricky conversation with, or I might maybe disagree with, or have a difference of perspective on. And I kind of think about why I was thankful for their work, like at the university, or the things they were doing. So I guess it was a very specific gratitude practice, and I'll include myself in tricky personalities. I mean, I'm not exempt from that category. Me too. But I think that was really helpful to me, and I think it became more intuitive, where it just was now an easier kind of understanding
Right.
of the
Sit.
complexity of things
Sit.
do. So yeah.
Sit. Wait.
Oh, we
Go.
have somebody unmuted who I think is talking to
Perfect.
their. Thank you. Thank you, Ryan. I appreciate you sharing that resource and your practices. Appreciate that. Okay, so we'll go on to our next question, but I'm just loving all the wonderful things in the chat that people are grateful for. Thank you, everybody, for sharing those. Okay, so our next question is, how do you recognize stress in your body? What do you notice in your body that tells you that, you know what? Yeah, um, I'm feeling it. I'm feeling it. And I'm gonna go to Pranika first this time, please.
Oh, many different ways. When I am stressed out, um, I tend to, it affects my sleep. That's usually one of the things, right? Like you just go through your day. I just go one thing after the other. But um, if something is stressing me out, I just keep waking up every few hours. So that's always an indicator. Also, my body hurts, right? Like it's usually for me, it's my shoulder, neck area, and you just know that I know that I carry it. So those are the physical, when I notice it physically, but also, my temperament, um, and unfortunately, and I think others may relate to it as well. We like our loved ones are the ones that see it, right? So at work, I'll be fine and professional, but I can be, maybe not as present with my kids or my spouse and short with them. So they may see that. So just, and later on we can just talk about tactics and stuff, but those are just what I notice and how I've learned to just recognize and make sure that it doesn't impact those relationships, and also how do I take care of my body.
Thank you so much. Rachel, what do you see in yourself when you're feeling stressed out?
Yeah, definitely some of the same things as Pranika. And I would just add, sometimes I'll notice like maybe a headache coming on, or like earlier this week, I had to have a really difficult conversation and I had some heartburn. Like I felt like that was coming on. And, after I had the conversation, I felt so much better, but, maybe some tightness or anxiousness. And also, like Pranika said, I'm just aware that maybe things are a little bit more at the surface in terms of how I might react to my kids, and so just being aware of those things for me, and
Thank you.
tiredness.
Yeah, thank you. Emma, what about for you?
Yeah, I resonate with what both of you shared about this idea of like just being emotionally thin. I think another thing that I notice is like very easily frazzled or unable to kind of hold a thought very long. Before this role, I worked at Harborview, and when I was really stressed, I would be going to a patient room and forget the room number and have to like relook at my list 20
Yeah,
times in 10 seconds, that sort of thing. Then I'm like, oh, this is a sign that I need to do
yeah,
something different.
for sure. Yeah, thank you for that. And Ryan.
Yeah, definitely, definitely echoing the things the panel's saying. I think, um, and what Emma just said as well. I think also I have a tendency to stop breathing. I've always been like, shutting my breathing down. And the older I get, the more I've thought about it and studied it and learned about it, and this may be obvious to some of y'all, but mindful and intentional breathing practices is really helpful. So that's something I usually kind of am kind of hesitating, or my breathing practice gets disrupted. So that's one way I try to kind of get back on track, is being mindful of my breathing. But
Yeah,
yeah, echoing the panel.
yeah. I notice for myself that I like clench my jaw, like I get jaw pains like all the time. Um, as the panelists go on to the next question, I would love it if our viewers can kind of drop in the chat what they experience in their body as they get stressed out. All of those things. Yeah, okay. All right. The next question that I have for the panelists is if you can share a little about a time in which you struggled to manage your stress or your anxiety in a work setting. And I'm going to start with Emma, please.
Oof, so many times. I think, yeah, before my current role, I was an inpatient social worker at Harborview, which had many stressful days. And I found myself like thinking about what I needed to do the next day or reviewing conversations I had with people over and over again when I wasn't at work anymore. And to me, that was a major red flag, like, oh, I'm not handling this stress well. And that was happening even when I was taking my breaks, I was doing my mindfulness, all of the things. And that was a sign to me like, oh, okay, this is even bigger than I had realized. I think especially that sort of like over again, like, oh, I wish I would have said this. That sort of conversation regret is what I'll call it. Uh,
Mm.
that's happened for me. I think it probably happens for all of us, and was a sign this is big.
Ryan, what about for you?
I think it connects to what I was kind of talking about earlier, as far as kind of preparing for like meetings or something. I know earlier in my professional career, potentially still, I'm not going to say it anymore, but when there are tricky conversations at meeting, or the stakes are high at certain meetings, I think, I guess I'll say I haven't been my best self, or I've said things that I regret I've said, or I've acted in ways I was like, oh, I could have done that better. And so I think carrying stress, or challenging topics, and I know right now, obviously, there's lots of challenges in different spaces at the university and beyond. So I think obviously it's real always, but I think I do feel like I've learned from that, and that kind of gratitude practice I was talking about actually has really helped me in those meeting spaces or contexts like that. So yeah.
And Pranika, what about for you? Can you think of a time like that?
Um, yeah, so I've been at the university for 24 plus years, and various roles, and um, I'll just talk about my most stressful role. So it was a newer position, and it was really, really, really stressful. And during it, like I could just feel, right, like I was just feeling the anxiety, like all of the things, right? Like all the stressful, I'm not doing well. And I was trying to use the tools that I had, just my usual, trying to exercise, trying to do eating well, sleeping, just um, focusing, but those still weren't working at that moment. So I I had to call a professional and go that route, which is, again, like all the different tools and resources. One of the resources that we have is EAP. So just kind of a reminder of, um, that was just an example of the worst, or the highest anxiety stress moment, and using a professional, which I'm so thankful for.
Absolutely. And Rachel, what about for you?
Gosh, as I was kind of thinking about this, I have a daughter who's 2, and when I was pregnant with her and working, um, in addition to my role that I currently hold, I actually was also working in a clinical role. And I've always really felt like that having my feet in the clinical piece really helps my teaching. But I just reached a point where during that pregnancy, I was just physically not feeling well, and I was just pushing through. I was stressed, and I was trying to manage it by resting as much as I could. But it just wasn't working. And so I finally just got to the point where I just said something has to give. And I decided I need to step away from that clinical position. It was really tough to do that, but the stress, for my own body and for the baby, I just knew something had to give. So there was a component for sure of my physical health, and it was causing stress in my work and personal life. So yeah, she's 2 now, and we've moved through that, but that was a point that was difficult, I would say, with balancing work.
Thank you to all the panelists for sharing, vulnerable parts of yourselves, and kind of it helps all of us to feel like we're not alone in our struggles, and that is so important for us to be in community with each other. So appreciate it. Thank you. Um, there's lots of love coming everyone's way in the chat. Be sure to read that as well. And our next question is, when you're feeling stressed, when you're feeling anxious, what are some things that you gravitate towards that help you to cope? And start with Ryan. Ryan, what helps you? What do you do?
Yeah, so I think there are different things. In the context of work, I do think I do try to practice kind of mindful breathing, even if it's for like 3 minutes or 5 minutes. So I think if I can shut my office door, find a spot where I feel comfortable, and we work in different spaces, so it might not be as easy for everybody, but trying to actually, even if it's 3 or 5 minutes, I find that really helpful. In the context of life and otherwise, I think music for me is a really important thing. It's one reason I live in Seattle, and having a musical community for me is a really important thing. And playing music. So I don't know if y'all have heard of the idea of a flow state, but I think it's like a positive flow experience, something that you're totally engrossed in, that is kind of maybe somewhat challenging. And I bet each of you have a certain type of a flow state experience that you can get into. Um, so I think for me, that's a really important thing if I'm playing music with friends and bandmates, or listening to music. So I guess a flow state is something I think is really important. Um, some of you may know a little bit about, I've been nerding out on the attention, questions around the attention. I was going to share one other resource with you all, the Strother School of Radical Attention. But I think one of the things they've been drawing my awareness to is the attention economy and how disruptive that is to our lives in so many different ways. And I would juxtapose what they call a dark flow state, which is kind of, quote unquote, doom scrolling or being so engaged in social media or whatever that you lose agency. Um, so might talk more about that in a bit, but I think I've been trying to think increasingly about the attention economy and its impacts on ourselves, but also our students. That's something I'm thinking a lot about. So I juxtapose like that dark flow state that I think can be too common for a variety of reasons these days with a positive flow state. So if you can get into an engrossing positive flow state in life, I think that's a good thing.
I can't wait to learn more about that. And I imagine that the students that come into your office have a lot to gain from that kind of knowledge. So excited to dig into that research. Rachel, what about for you?
I think, one of the first things for me is just kind of to pause or maybe even like move a little bit and just kind of ask myself the question of like, what is going on? Is this something at work? Is this something at home? Kind of first starting with the basics, like, am I just too tired? Did I have over caffeinated? Kind of going through some of the basics. And then once I kind of get to that place, to really start to take some action towards it, even a little step really goes a long way towards making me feel better. So like I had a really huge presentation. I get to go to Coeur d'Alene next week to give, and I had the final slides were due, and I knew I needed to get it done. And I just had I had some healthy stress around that. Like I need to get it done. And I felt much better once I just took the action. So I think sometimes it's trying to figure out, like in that case, it was some healthy stress, or is it like I've been feeling tired and stressed weeks on end, like when I was pregnant and knew I needed to take a step away from the job. So I kind of have to be real with myself and say, like, is this kind of day in and day out? Or is this like, I need a nudge to kind of, hey, just get that presentation or take a small action towards whatever it may be. So that's what I found helpful, is taking some step, even if it's small, and really asking myself some hard questions sometimes. So
Yeah, yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Some movement, some directional movement can be so helpful. Emma, what about for you?
Yeah, I think a couple things. The first one that comes to mind, both in like a work setting, is like the space that I work in, trying to make it my own with things that ground me or remind me of my like overall life values. So like this is my office, very much is kind of my aesthetic. You can't see them, but there's photos of like the people or things that matter to me, so that in the midst of a moment of stress, I can be grounded in like, oh, this situation is hard, but overall, I still have these supports, or I still have these places that make me feel a certain way. So that's one thing. I think in a way I've taken this to an extreme, and that a couple years ago I was realizing like, oh, when I like to sail, when I'm sailing and on the water, it's such a stress relief for me. So my partner and I like bought a sailboat, and we now live on it as a way of being like, if this is a thing that helps me feel re-rooted in who I am, like I'm going to go for it. I'm going to let myself do that. So those are big things, but like in a small way. Let me see if I have one. When I'm stressed, like in a meeting or something, I have these post-it notes that are like, if you were a child in the 90s, you can scratch off and there's the color underneath. So I will take one of these and I'll doodle on it for 5 minutes. My rule is just like, I can't stop doodling for 5 minutes, as a way to really focus my attention to something else and help me have like a bit of breathing space amidst the stress. So those are a few of my ways.
Love it. Love it. All right. Pranika, what about for you?
Oh my gosh. I can think of a few things. So, I mentioned earlier about yoga, right? Like, and that's like, um, um, that's my new thing. And I mean, I used to do it a few years before, but that studio closed and restarted. I love it so much. Like it helps me. And as a leader, I feel like, it's my tool, right? Like when we are flying, flight attendants tell us that we need to put on our mask before helping others. So it just helps me stay grounded and be, present for my team. Like it's, someone on the chat asked, what has yoga, like, I don't remember exactly the question, but how have I benefited from it? But, it's more than physical exercise. What I actually take away from that is, and especially the hot yoga studio I go to, sometimes in the middle of it, I'm like, why do I why is this my choice of, wellness, right? But when I leave, I feel so good. And it has really taught me about being mindful, being present, focused, in the moment, non-judgment, right? Like when you're struggling to breathe in there, like it's just, you have to like just be present and focused. And I think all of those really is helping me at the moment. And and I can just be the best version of myself, right? Like I'm leading a team, and how can I be the best version? And that helps me be the best version. And even before this, right? Like I was like, not sure how many panelists would be here. So what do I do for myself? Because I was, I'm at a clinic today and just meeting with team members, and but I, made sure to come in this room a few minutes before, of just, sat here and just reminded myself that I need to be present for everyone's time, because everyone's time is valuable. And how can we focus on each other and give each other the time, and, commit to them, right? Like this was my commitment. So I'm committed to, just kind of respecting everyone's time, and just using those mindfulness with each other. And then the other thing that one of my colleagues who's on here reminded me is, some of you talked about your transition time, the Sundays, and, your commute home from work. I do transition showers. So, at the end of the day, like, whatever time I log on, off, or like 7, 8, whatever, like, or even prior to that, like, I just need to step away from like work to personal life, or, like running around to soccer practice or whatever else, to being home. And a shower just helps me transition. It's a simple thing, but it's, whatever is your transition that helps you relieve your stress is helpful. Um, and then one last thing that I'll mention is walking. I think, one of the panelists earlier on, Mark, talked about walking. At one of the whole youth seminars, and we also do wellness moments at our town halls and primary care. And one of the team members did a wellness moment on forest bathing. And, that's like the really intentional walks, right? Because prior to learning about forest bathing, which grateful for the UW community to, for teaching me that, um, I would walk and, be on work phones, like return calls, listen to work related things. It was like always, work related. Um, but now when I walk, it's actually like, even it's 10 or 15, 20 minutes, I disconnect and look at the green colors around me, smell the flowers, and just really, hear birds, like use all of our senses for forest bathing. So I would recommend trying that. It is really, really powerful, even if it's, 10 minutes in the middle of the day. UW campus is beautiful, the hospitals, clinics, wherever you're working, just if you're stressed out at the moment, like just that 10 minutes of stepping out in nature. We live in the Pacific Northwest. It's beautiful. It really, really helps. Thanks.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, completely agree. Um, Thank you for actually posting that resource, Anna, in the chat for forest bathing. So that actually takes us to our next question, which is an interesting question. If you had to give advice to your younger self, and you can go back to any time, whatever that younger self is, whatever age that younger self is, what would that advice be? And what age would your younger self be at? And I'm gonna start with, let's go with Emma.
Okay. I think thinking back at my younger self, like when I first started my career post-graduate school, so like 10 years ago,
Okay.
had a hard time holding boundaries, or wanted always to be seen as like the hardest worker in the work setting. And I would say to myself, like, go home at the end of your shift and take your lunch break. Like you need to do those things for your longevity.
Yes.
Don't burn yourself out trying to achieve like some external thing. Keep to your hours, take your lunch break, especially your lunch break.
Take your lunch
As I'm
break for
saying this to my younger
sure.
self, I'm also saying it to my current self.
Yes, for sure. I love that. Okay, good. Rachel, what about for you?
Gosh, this is a tough one. I would say, for sure, just kind of going back to that example I shared, even during the period where I was pregnant, was just speaking up for myself sooner and recognizing when maybe I needed to step away at a sooner point. And I think I could speak to that now, looking back on the areas where I've kind of said, maybe I need to make a change, or kind of advocated for myself a little bit to step away from something, that something greater, something better has always moved into its place. And I had a lot of fear of, like, if I let go of this, or like, if I don't say yes to this, maybe like this isn't going to go well for my job. But really, like, being authentic and kindly speaking up for myself, or trying to move myself towards where my gifts really are and being myself. I feel like that has gone so much better than trying to fit myself into a box and stay working hard in the things that maybe weren't working, versus actually just, saying to my boss, I think like this is really, like, feels like my, a really great gift for me, or like I feel like this part of my role, but I'm not so sure about this.
Mm.
And there was definitely a long period where it was just so much more of a pleaser. And I think there's a way to be kind and still step in and advocate for yourself. And it ends up, I think, being better for the workplace, better for you. And so not kind of staying for so long in a place where maybe isn't lining up as much, because it ends up causing more stress. And so just showing up and being you. And I think, there's kind ways to do it, and ways that are thoughtful, but knowing when you need to step away, I think, is really important from something.
Yeah, that's not easy to do, because that really requires a lot of like self-awareness and showing up in really authentic ways, and
Yeah.
having that voice at work to kind of just say, yeah, I need to distance myself in these ways, and this isn't feeling like where my energy lies at this time.
Yeah,
It's a hard skill to develop. Yeah.
it is. It
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. Um, what about for you, Pranika?
What would I tell my younger self? You're
And
not
what
a
age would you be at?
oh um hmm age 42. I don't know why that came up, but it did. Um Probably tell my younger self, you're not alone, right? Like I just feel like sometimes when we're stressed out, um, we may think you're alone, or that people are too busy. But at the end of the day, like no one's too busy to help their colleague, right? Like, so talk to someone, right? Like if, I mean, my moment when I was so stressed out, like even though I was close to my colleagues then, like it was gosh, about 10 years ago, that example that I had shared with you, I didn't talk to my colleagues. I didn't talk to my boss. I didn't talk to them about how stressful that new position was. And um, I just think it's helpful to share, right? Like, because people want to help your leaders, your colleague, they want to help you out. So, um, yeah, we're no one's alone in any of this. Like we're not alone. So I think that's what I would tell my younger self is you're not alone, and reach out to your resource, whoever that resource could be. I mean, at least just small community, big community, next level, third level, whoever, just reach out and talk to someone, and eh, that will help you.
Yeah. Identify who your village is, and just kind of seek them out. Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. And Ryan, what about for you?
Yeah, it's a good question. I've been thinking, actually, there's a Thich Nhat Hanh. It's kind of like a morning, I don't know, we'd call it like a morning prayer or something, but it's like waking up, I smile. I 24 hours, 24 hours today. I have 24 hours today. I vow to be present with every one of them or something to that effect. I'm going to aim to be present in each of these hours and have compassion for all living creatures. And I think that last line is tricky for all living creatures. And so I think I'd tell my past self and my current self and my future self, think about what that means. What does it mean to have compassion for all living creatures? And I think in this kind of like politically fraught moment and tense time all over the world, for all living creatures, even those we disagree with, and we might have, challenging experiences ideologically or personally or whatever it might be. So I'd say, think about that. Think about what it means to have compassion for all living creatures.
Thank you for that. Hey, we have some advice in the chat as well. Um, Lindsay from our audience says, I would encourage my younger self to not let my consistent exercise routine drop off as I got busier in my 20s. It's so hard to make time or priority for that habit when you are mid-career with kids, etc. But it is so helpful in processing stress. Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for posting that. Appreciate it. Okay, so our next question is, uh, do you have any hacks or stress management tips to share? And our panelists have been doing such an awesome job of sharing tips and tricks throughout, but any like kind of quick hacks that you haven't shared yet that you might wanna share with our panelists? And I love Anna, thank you for dropping that in. Hugging your cat is fantastic. And the Calm app, I'm a big fan of the Calm app, actually. My favorite are the sleep stories from the Calm app. If you haven't tried it, it's really fun. Any from the panelists? Let's go ahead and start with Ryan this time.
I think it's important just to remember to center joy, even in the most difficult times. Like, do you want to end the day with joy? How do you want to be joyful? Um, and in the last year or so, I've been listening to more comedy podcasts. I'm like, oh, I'm so serious. But I feel like I have a good sense of humor. So I've been like getting into more comedy and things like that. So I've just been kind of doing that. So yeah, I think centering joy, even in tricky times, and finding ways to do that. Seeing if you can end your way with something joyful.
Love it, love it. Rachel, what about for you?
One thing for me, and I don't know, this might sound a little bit like crazy or silly, but like just going head on with the thoughts and challenging them. Like when I say to myself, or when it comes in, like, you know, I'm not sure if I'm good enough for this, or I'm feeling so overwhelmed, just being like, no, stop. Like I can do this. Like I'm strong. Like, and sometimes literally, like, I might say that out loud. Like I just remind myself, and I talk to students about this too, that like our thoughts are so powerful. So like when it kind of creeps in, just like grabbing it, being like, no, actually, like I'm made for this. Like I got this, and just kind of before it turns into the anxiety thing. So
Yeah, I thought absolutely. Anna said that personal affirmations, yes, our thoughts are powerful. I mean, if you think about every single thing in this world started with a thought, right? It started with an idea. So thoughts definitely are powerful. Yeah. Emma, what about for you?
Hmm. I think one of the things that I do, knowing myself when I start to feel overwhelmed, is I have a hard time making plans and I get very indecisive. So I actually have a whole system of like when I'm at work, if I'm feeling really overwhelmed, depending on what day of the week it is, I'll go for a different walk with intention. So if the day starts with the T, I always go for a walk and I try and count how many different species of trees I see. And on the other days, so Monday, Wednesday, Friday, if it's not a tea day, then I'll go for a walk and count how many different types of like ground I can walk on. Um, and I always have to take a different route. So those are like rules I've set up for myself in advance, knowing overwhelmed Emma will not be able to think of them. So they're there for me if I need them.
Oh, that's a new one. I have not heard that one before. I'm gonna have to steal it. I love it. Cool. And Pranika, what about for you?
Gosh, a few things. So my hacks or tips, I remind myself that this shall pass, right? It is temporary. The budget stresses, like COVID, right? When COVID happened, it's like, all right, it will pass one of these days. So just reminding ourselves that we'll get through this moment. It's temporary as humans, and our well-being long term, that's more important. And this task moment, chapter in our life, will change. Um, During one of my really busy times at work, my team made a frame for me that had Nelson Mandela's quote, "It always seems impossible until it's done." And that is right next to me in my office. And it's just a great reminder. So that's, something that I remember. And then another hack that helps community as well is um, smiling, right? The power of smile. So we talked about walking and it's all about I just want to focus this like on community, right? Like we're obviously here together. Um, s- I was born and raised in Fiji. So when I went back in December, like everyone around there were just people are just happy, right? Like people are happy and um everyone smiles. Like, and my kids noticed that they were like, everyone smiles. Like, it's just a joyful. So I kind of like reminded myself, like, I need to bring that back. So, when I walk, like, again, like the forest bathing thing, I wave at my neighbors, they wave back, we smile. I feel good. I'm sure they feel good. And even at work, right? Like, you say hi to someone, like, we could get busy, but like, let's just be purposeful on how we, present ourselves and because then the receiving party will get joy and feel better and you will as well. And there's so much research about um, smile and what smile can do for our well-being. So try that hack.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Absolutely. There is good research on that, actually. And our last question actually is, what is your favorite UW resource that you want to share for managing stress and yeah. And people in the audience, drop your favorite UW resource in the chat too. So, okay, this time we're gonna start with Rachel. What's your favorite UW resource?
My favorite resource is really not something specific, but just the people around me. And I feel so grateful to work with, many people that I feel I can go to that are trusted, that I can just fully be myself and bring hard things to. So, I get to work with Emma and meet in many meetings with her and many others who are very real and trusted, who I can show up and share what's going on in that moment. And so I would say the people around me that I work with on a day-to-day basis.
Let's go to Ryan.
Yeah, well, I was going to keep it on the music front situation here. And I don't know
Yeah.
if some folks might know the Wednesday music concerts in the libraries, but I think that's kind of a cool midday thing that gets you in a whole other kind of world or space, or at least that would me. And I also think there's just so many interesting kind of musicians teaching or students here. So and artists. So there's lots of cool art to kind of check out on campus. So yeah, shout out to the library series and our awesome
Thank
music
you.
students and folks.
That's great. That's great. Emma, what about for you?
I see it's in the chat as well, but I think our EAP that we have access to talking to someone else in a confidential setting is so important. I know it's been important for me, just a space to figure out, okay, what do I do from here? So big bold for that. The other one, kind of going off what Ryan says, is I love that we can go to the Henry and to the Burke with our work IDs and just have a chance to be something creative or learn something new and pull us out of our like work selves and into just our learning selves. So I love having those resources.
Absolutely. And Pranika.
I'll be really quick because I know we're almost done. EAP, definitely. I mean, I think that's such a great resource. So that's out there. Dr. Browning on here mentioned the, peer support, whole you resources. I mean, I love the whole you. Um, the whole you didn't ask me to do you say this, but I like love it, right? Like from when the program started, like to, the fitness movement, different times of the day that they have, different activities, the reading materials. I mean, like I've used the, been to parenting seminars, elder care resources, because my parents are also aging, and nutrition courses, right? Like breakfast tips, like please use it. There's also discounts on there for different places, and amazing, amazing resource. This office hasn't been here forever, right? Like I believe it's about 10 years, Anna, 10, 12-ish years, right? So using your resources, and then most importantly, each other, right? Like we are here together. This is our community. It's a big community. It's the UW community. It's the UW Medical Center community or UW Medicine community, but we are one community, and it's such a collaborative, amazing place to be. Like the culture at the university is so great. I was a student here as well, so I love and believe in like this culture. So please, just use your resource. Like let's just be the best community out here, out there, and the best employer, and help each other out. Like we can do
Yeah.
this. Like we can just reach out to people.
I think it says a lot that so many students come back to work here, me being one of them, right? Like
Me too.
it says a lot. So yeah.
I just wanted to add one thing to what Pranika was saying. I love, and I think Ryan was saying this about joy and just what we could do, like even all the people on this call, like waving and smiling at people, how much joy we could spread in our campus. And there's been, some hard things, happening, and just what we can do right here, each one of us. And I just love this idea of joy multiplying, and what you said about your walks, Pranika, and I'm going to do it more myself. And so thank you. It's inspiring to hear what people are saying in the chat, and what y'all are saying as panelists.
Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you to the panelists. Really appreciate you being so honest and open. And thank you for our participants for really keeping the chat so lively and sharing your insights in the chat as well. Thank you, everyone.